asking you, may I come in? You have to say come in, and you have to offer him or her the seat. Will you stand and greet the person, or you will sit and just say simply, okay, have a seat? This is the question for you all, and I will give you the answer of this question in the last second of my presentation. And please give your answer with logic. Either you will say that yes, I will sit and just ask my client to sit with logic, give your reason, and you may say, I will stand and greet my client and then offer the seat to that person, but give your one line logic or answer to it. So, with this, the first part is greeting. Greeting the client is important. See, before greeting, fixing a meeting is the one, I should say, step. There may be telephonic call to you made by client that yes, the person is fixing a meeting with you, when that person can meet you. First. Second, that person may be your client's friend, your ex client's friend, so that person is coming directly to you. That can be scenario. Third, that person is unknown to you, looking for some solution and is straight away coming to your chamber of the court. So there can be three scenarios of coming a client. So with these three scenarios, three aspects are different. The first one is, in the telephonic meeting, you know the client's name, you know the client's question, which will he'll be asking to you. Second, if he is your friend's friend, if he is your client's client, then you know at least the name of the person, or the person knows you. The third aspect, he is unknown to you, you are unknown to him. So what happened in that scenario? You have to make a little more much comfortable, comfort with the person, little much more confidence with the person. So in this scenario, you have to see that which kind of client is coming to you. Okay. Second step comes to the greeting. The person is on your door, is meeting to your junior associate, if you are somewhere or the other, a little more senior, or to your clerk, or directly to you. There are three chances. Maybe to your junior associate, maybe to your clerk, and he may be coming directly to you. So in three of the situation, he is coming to you. So what is important? Important is building up that first connection. The first impression is very much important. So how you will be greeting that person? See, जैसे ही वो अंदर आया, you may not, you may get the language of that person. You may get the status of the person. You may see that how the person's appearance is. So with this, say hello, say good morning, whatever you are called to make that person comfortable. Offer him the chair, he will sit. Then ask that person whether he needs water, tea, coffee, whatever. The first session is to make that person comfortable, because he will be telling his heart out to you, he will telling his emotions to you. So make that person this much comfortable that he is, he is having a little more confidence in you. So third one, the third, which is most important part in it, is language. You may use English if the person is able to speak and able to listen to you or understand it to you. You may use Hindi and English both, but you may either even needed to use the local language. At times, what happened? The person is comfortable in the local language, and but you are not comfortable with the local language. Then what may happen? That connection between you and client will be broken down. So please make that connection with the language also, because we Indians, or I should say every human being, can take or can speak very better in their own language rather than in any second language. So this is the first part of greeting. Now, second part. See, the situation is now the person is comfortable, had water, you know his language. Now you have to, you need to know his story, his facts, his problem. So how you may start? You may start that, okay, let's see, he's Mr. X. Okay, Mr. X, you came to me. I'm glad that you have chosen me. Now, can we let's start your problem, or can we discuss why you are here for me? So now you need his story, and he has to tell you story. So what is important here? Mind it, my dear students, if there are two people in the meeting, in the client counseling, then you should decide the work that one person will make the eye contact and the other one will jot down the facts. If you are one, then you have to talk also, you have to make eye contact also, and you have to jot down the facts also. Because without jotting down the material facts, there will be problem. What problem there would be? The problem would be you may miss the story, or we are in the advanced generation with the prior permission of the client, you may record the session also. It is may. You should take client's permission that if you give me your due permission, can I record our talk, so that in future if I miss some facts, I may take it from the recording. So this is the briefing of it. Now what you have to do before asking the story of the person, you give him client advocate privilege. What is client advocate privilege? See, the client may be an accused, okay, and he has to tell you the right side of the story, that he has done that wrong. Why would he tell? Tomorrow you may use those facts or those confession of him against him. You have to tell him or her that this there is a client and attorney privilege in Advocates Act. I am bound by my professional ethics that whatever between you and me will be within this four wall. It will not go beyond it. I will never use it against. So that kind of confidence you have to give. And if you will give that I am under oath, he will believe you more. So in the second, you ask his problem. First of all, we'll start with the name. Okay, tell us your name, your profession, where you are, about your family, and ask his side of story. He will tell you the side of story. So in between, if you need to ask, please disturb the client. Otherwise, let him narrate the story as it is. Don't disturb the person. When you disturb the person, what happened is that he forget about the flow. He forget that where he was, what was he talking. Because it's an incidence story. It's not like one day problem. It's a chain of stories. It's a chain of facts. So let him narrate it to you. You should jot down it. Once he has finished with it, once you have jot down it, you have a story. Then second, third part of the story comes. Third part of the story comes as narration. What is narration part? Now you narrate the story which you had from the client, that sir, okay, now I have fact sheet of yours. This problem has happened to you. For example, you just narrate the story in a way he is telling you. What is the benefit of narration? The benefit of narration is there may be some relevant facts which client has forgot. But when you brushing up his memory with your narration, he may add a relevant point. He may add or he may give input to it. There are some outcome of it. The first one is, if any point is missing, the person will tell you, okay, this is this and this is this. Second, if you have by chance wrongly written something, some date, some figure, some person's name, you have wrongly written, it may be possible. You are also human being, the advocates are also human beings, there may be chances of mistake. So that correction can be done with the narration. The third one is, anything which is not relevant for the story, you may chuck out there. See, you must have even seen in memorial that there are two kinds of facts: relevant facts and important facts. With this narration, you can jot down even the relevant facts. You can get the real side of story. So this is the second part of narration. First is greeting, second is the story. The third part now came as, uh, what are the chances? For example, after narrating it, you completed the fact sheet, you identified the problem. For example, it is murder. So you have identified, okay, this is there in section 300 and 302 of IPC. There may be other sections clubbed with it. So you identified the problem and wrongdoer and victim. There may be more victim related to the story. There may be more wrongdoer to the story. So you got to know the problem and identification of the party with the third part. The third The fourth is party at fault. And why the party at fault? Motive of the crime or motive of the act, motive of the civil act can become why that person has done. There may be some chances of civil, there may be some chances of general exception. There may be some civil defenses under contract or torts. So with this, you are just getting it. You are not telling anything. And now with the next part, with the final, second last part, you give the client solution after the problem, after the party, after the story. Now a solution part. Tell them what exact problem in hand is. For example, you just say to them, sir, okay, there is a problem of section 300 of IPC, but you are a complicit to the crime, so you will be punished under section 149 of Indian Penal Code. Or there can be a charge of section 149 of IPC on you. There may be. Don't scare them also. The next one is tell them the legal solution in the layman language. Now this is very technical. The legal solution you have to give, and the language is also layman. And then how you can do it? You have to practice this in your law school, in your day-to-day life, that how to do this. That okay, you are telling legal solution also, and the language is also plain. The next one is way forward. Way forward is what? You will tell the client, okay, sir, for this we need to file a notice. If it is a civil or if it is a criminal, FIR would be there. We have to apply for the bail. This is the procedure, that how you being the advocate has to work. This is the solution. Now client is able to know the solution also, able to know the problem also, able to know the legal technicalities also. Now the last point of it is important, that is the conclusive part. Because here you have to decide so many things, like fees, you have to decide. You have to decide the next meeting. You have to decide how to go for it. You have to decide evidences. You have to decide drafting. So this is the conclusion part. And in the conclusion, you have to make all these things in a very concrete manner. The first one is, after your advice, it may be possible and there may be good chances. The client said, okay, I'm done. There may be chances. So be ready for that. But there can be positive aspect also, that he said, okay, sir, I want to do it. When he is saying, okay, I want to do it, the next question immediately on the table will come, what is your fees? Because see, the client also give you fees. When you are telling the client that this is the legal problem and this is the legal solution, the fees is next, what is important. So now you have to decide fees. How you can decide fees? There is a technicality, there is a technique for it. See who is a client, what is the economic status, what is the job, what is the business, what is he doing. Second, what kind of case is in hand? If it is a simple theft case, okay. If it is a contract case, okay. If it is a property case, okay. If it is a matrimonial case, okay. So what kind of case you are having in hand? Your case is mostly even dependent on that. The third one is your status. If you are a senior advocate, if you are a junior advocate, if you have started your practice, that kind of goodwill also matters. So on that basis, you have to decide your fees too. The next important thing is, who is other party? See, at times students ask me that, ma'am, why is this factor important? I'll tell you why. Because the other party and the status of the other party is also relevant, because he is the opponent, and you have to tell to the client also that the opponent is very strong, the opponent is like this. So that person is very relevant. So other party also is one of the factor which you can count on decision of fees. There could be some other more factors are there. For example, the case is already in existence. It may be the chance that you are the second or third lawyer. It may be the chance. So that factor also, see that on what stage the case is. Is it a raw case? Is it an ongoing case? Is it about to decide? Is it appeal? Is it what? So that is other factor which you have to taken into consideration and in mind while deciding the fee. So this is kind of decision of the fees. The next one is you have to tell to the client that this is the list of evidences, and I need this list of evidences, or these kinds of things, these documents, these papers, these pictures I am required, I need, to prove my case. So that is a list of evidence. You give it to your client and he will be producing in the next meeting. The next one is drafting of notice, drafting of reply, drafting of bail application. You just tell to the person that, yes, sir, I am into this stage of drafting and I will draft and do my work, like this. The next and the last thing is date and time of the meeting. You should also decide in the present meeting that when you will be meeting in future. See your diary, see your workspace, see the condition of the client, see the condition of the case, see everything, count on everything. You may take help of your assistant, junior associate, clerk, but do decide the next date of meeting and time also. See the availability of client also. You may not give a haphazard or any random date where the client is not available. So see his availability also. The next and last, there are some keys. Be sympathetic to them. Why? Because until unless you are not going to the shoes of the client, they may not, you may not be able to understand the pain which they are bearing. And if you will not be, you may not be emotional to the case. Don't be emotional to the client, but be emotional, professional to the case. Why? Because that may decide your future, that will be paying you up. Second one is decide, see the case in a professional manner. See, don't give fake promises to client that I will win the case by any hook and crooks. No, don't give like this. See the chances of winning and losing, because you being advocate knows the legal technicality, mind it. He being layman, no, don't know. He being the victim or wrongdoer may not know. But don't give them fake or false promises. Give them promise, give him or her promise that yes, I will do my best. But don't give this kind of false or fake promise that yes, I will win and we will win, and I'll do everything, every damn thing to win this case. Don't give this kind of fake and false promise. Next is, how to make that kind of bonding between client and counsel. Talk to them about their family, talk to them about their personal life, talk to them little about their personality. The next key to win, or to make a healthy client counseling, is make them as much as comfortable you can. Once he or she is comfortable, if he or she is not comfortable, for example, you are a man and the front person is lady, and he is sorry, she is not comfortable in talking to you, get a lady with you and tell that lady that yes, I am I care for you, that's why I got the lady for you. And you tell your problem to her, I'm leaving the room. There may be situation, there may be chances. So use these kinds of tactics and you for sure win the client counseling. You will sure, that's the first instance or key to win the case. Because once they are giving you the case, you will put up your 100% in the case and you will be a successful lawyer. But if they are not happy with your first meeting, second meeting, whatever meeting you are having, sorry, you will not have the case and future is uncertain for you. So this is all from my side. Now I'm open to question. I'm expecting good number of questions. That's why I have made my presentation very short and brief, because there are good number of questions of the students with client counseling. So I'm open for you all. Please don't make the session empty. Please ask questions. Rashmi, if we don't have questions, we may stop it. What about the answers? People give some answers or not? Hello?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Please, if there are answers from the students, please let me know. And if there are any questions, please do let me know.
And there were three people who wanted to comment. So, Muskan, you wanted to convey a message to ma'am. Please go ahead.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good
So,
morning. Please tell me.
this is with view to the question that you asked that how would you greet your client? So, my answer was that I would stand and greet the client to establish the comfort of the client and to set a nice tone throughout the entire meeting.
But you are an advocate, and he or she is near your client. Why should you leave your chair and why should you greet the person?
Ma'am, as a mark of respect and to establish that I am here for you, I'm listening to you, and I'm not here as your superior but as your equal.
Yes, I was expecting this. Thank you, Muskan. Anybody else who wants to say no, I will not
Thank you,
stand,
ma'am.
but I will reserve myself so that even client will understand the importance of me. Anybody who wants to comment can please. No one, everybody will stand and greet the client.
Ma'am, Rishita had a slightly different opinion. So, Rishita, if you could
Please.
pitch in and tell your opinion to ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am. No, I was actually saying the same thing that I do not know a lot, but I have read a little about the Deccan era, and they think that it is the most modest way to meet someone, that is to stand and greet them, and don't take the seat as matlab, unless they do it first. That's what I was saying.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
it
ma'am.
is. See, it is the modest way, but I have met some I have taken interviews of advocates and client counseling. So they simply said, and that's why I've asked this question to you all. They simply say that, why should I stand? Because that person is in need and that person is in pain, that person has to come and talk to me. See, there may be generations difference. We are into a modern generation. You may be a modern advocate with very much empathy with the client, but there are senior advocates, in your internships also. I should not put up on the recording this, but you may have seen that the advocate generally don't give respect to others, even not to the interns, not to the clerks. But when it comes to the client, if the client is for with a heavy bag of money, they talk very nicely. Otherwise, the scenario is different.
Ma'am, can I speak?
Yeah, yeah, please, please, please.
Ma'am, I think you said this one point during your session that it basically depends. I think personally that it
Hmm.
depends on on your profession. That is, whether you're a senior advocate, whether you're an intern, whether you're a junior advocate, or if you've just started your practice. So it mostly
Yes.
depends on that. I think. Except for that, I think the client or the victim is just a human too. So after all of this, he's just a human. So I cannot make any comments on the other part, but this is what I
Huh.
feel. Thank you,
Okay,
ma'am.
so we have to differ case to case now. Now the conclusion is, every story is different, every advocate is different. We cannot generalize this. Do we come to the end with this life? Or we should make it irrespective of anybody. Let's make it general that yes, we'll stand and greet. Can we compartmentalize like this, or let's open to the person to person howsoever they are doing? Okay, chalo. Do we have some questions, Rashmi?
Yes, ma'am, we have some questions. Mohammed
Please.
Asla has a question. Mohammed, please go ahead
Hmm.
and then unmute your mic.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
I have a question that if a client comes to an advocate, okay,
Mhm.
does the advocate need to be non-ethical or he need to non-ethical to the client,
I,
or he
I,
need to
I
be
I did not.
according to his
Your
opinion?
voice is a little breaking, Mohammed.
So,
I'll read out his question, ma'am.
needs
I'll
Yeah,
read out.
please.
Asla,
yes.
thank you so much. I'll just read out your question. There's a slight error in your internet connection. So, ma'am, he asked, is it relevant for the advocate to take client's problem without ethics?
Without ethics?
Yeah.
See, there are three things: taking the problem, leading the problem, and fighting the problem. You may hear the problem without ethics. For example, I was reading about an advocate who has taken a Kasab's case, and he been very bluntly asked by a news anchor that how dare you can take, you know that this person is a terrorist, and you know that this person has taken so many people's life, it is there in the CCTV and everything. And he said that this is my professional ethics to take a client's brief, and this is there in professional ethics, if you read. So this is the duty casted on the shoulders of advocate, that yes, you have to take a brief irrespective whosoever is in front of you. You let the court, let the law, let the procedure establish him as a victim or as a wrongdoer or as an accused, but you should not judge the person with your judgment. So that's your responsibility. But what is without ethics, I'm not getting. For example, you are not proving the person right and wrong, you're just representing the person. So representation, or you're putting up his voice because he cannot apply the law, you have to do it. I think I am able to answer the question. Can we have next question?
Yes, ma'am.